So here's a quick owner's manual, guys, on how to use the land trust. Now, when you're using the land trust, you can do a couple of different things to be able to accomplish anonymity. So one thing you can do is you can just go ahead and use the land trust to be able to use the anonymity, but you're not going to have any other protection with it. And that would be as if you just had a land trust there in place. There's other ways that you can create anonymity as well as being able to create a Series LLC. And one way to do that is to use Wyoming. So Wyoming's best if you want that built-in anonymity that's there right when you create the LLC itself. So what you want to have though with that is a really strong assurance of what are going to be those annual costs to Wyoming. Wyoming doesn't have a corporate tax, but it does have yearly fees associated with that. So there's a little bit of cost associated with having that Wyoming LLC. Now you're going to want to use Texas. Texas doesn't have any annual fees. We can use the land trust in conjunction with the Texas Series LLC to accomplish the anonymity just the same as we would do with Wyoming. And Texas has some of the strongest protections, charging order protections on par with Wyoming, but there's no annual fees associated with it. Now the one drawback to Texas is if it's making over $1 million annually, I think it's 1.1 million now, this number always changes, then it's subject to a corporate tax. So if you're making large amounts of money through the entity, then you would want to form inside of Wyoming and pay that extra state fee because you'd be saving on the franchise tax. So there's a little bit of consideration of what entity choice to do that depends upon the income and amounts. And then you might want to use a local state, if your local state happens to have the right series structure as well as the right laws to be able to protect that structure if it were ever sued, right? And we're looking for strong charging order protection. And this could be coming about more and more as state laws change. And we stay on top of all of that to make sure that all the recommendations that we give to our clients are always up to date. So when we look at a non-series structure is what we're looking at here, we're going to be looking at just an LLC structure. And here's where we have the hub and spoke model of an LLC. So you'd have one LLC that's typically formed here in Wyoming, which is a manager, typically a manager-managed LLC. And then you have all of these individual LLCs that are formed in the state where the asset's located, and these are all member-managed. And they in turn own the property through a land trust and have this individual property. This is the most time-tested type of protection. This is the most sophisticated, but also the oldest type, where you end up having increased expenses because you have all these individual LLCs now. So that's the drawback to it. But you have the longevity of this being a very known model, so to speak. And we're also able to use this model just like the Series LLC to be able to move the assets in because of this act right here, guys, this St. Germain Act, which says that when you transfer a property, a 1 to 4 unit property into a land trust, they cannot call the due on sale clause, right? So they can't accelerate the mortgage. So if you have your existing mortgage in place, however it's held, and your personal name are inside of an LLC, when you want to transfer it to a land trust, they can't call that note due. Over the last 5 years, we've had zero problems transferring the assets because of the St. Germain Act when we're moving things into this kind of structure. Great. When you want to protect assets, guys, and again, we're switching back here to the Series LLC, right? Because it functions just like the hub and spoke model, but the Series LLC is 99% of the time the way that we want to go. Whenever you acquire a new property, you're just going to acquire it acquire that property in whatever way that you typically do. Almost always this is going to be in your personal name, and then we're going to move it into the land trust after the fact. You can hold cash and stocks up here in the parent, or you can create an individual child series and hold those cash and stocks here. And for syndication investors, you can decide whether you want to hold all the syndications underneath one individual child series, or we can separate out the individual syndication investments or limited partnership investments and their individual child series. Either way works. works. The only real nuance that really applies in this situation is what happens when you're acquiring new property or refinancing property, and that always happens outside of the entity and inside of your personal name, and then we move it into the entity after the fact. It's just, the only drawback here to the Series LLC is that the financing inside of a Series LLC is possible, except for the fact that they're going to want to do a full underwriting of the entire entity structure, and then you have to pay their attorneys to do that. And so we almost say, let's just not go through all of that other hassle. Let's just do whatever we need to do to get through underwriting as quickly as possible, and then we'll clean it up after the fact. It's always faster and more cost effective to do it that way. Again, guys, buying new property, same type of thing. We're not worried about the due on sale clause because of the transfer to the land trust, and the St. Germain Act says that we can do this. We're going to use a warranty deed to transfer this asset to preserve the title insurance on the property, and that they will see on the public records, if anybody looks, that, hey, you used to own this piece of property, but key point here, you don't actually own it anymore. It's actually owned by the land trust and the child series. So if they guess that you own the property, they actually guess wrong because you aren't actually the owner anymore. When you want to sell the property, you can either sell the property just directly out of the land trust to the third party, or sometimes the title company will want you to transfer it from the land trust to your personal name and from your personal name to the third party. And the reason why is because this can just make it easier for their underwriting, because they say, hey, well, when we look at the chain of title, transferring it from your name to another third party, that's really common for us. Once we're trying to transfer it from a trust to a third party, that's not so common for us, so it gives us a little bit of heartburn. In some circumstances, that is, but almost all the time we can just sell the property directly out of the trust, and the title companies are fine with it. But if we ever run into a scenario where we have an issue with that, what we do is we just transfer the asset to the personal name and sell it out of your personal name back into the third party. And one key point here, guys, with all of the entity structures that we're working with here, these all qualify for your 1031 exchanges. So if you're anything that you can do as a real estate investor and make money doing real estate, all of those options are still available to you as when using these structures. So it does not inhibit your ability to do business. When we're looking at refinancing, again, we're going to do the refinancing always outside of the entity structure, because we don't want to have to pay the bank to have to go do this elaborate underwriting process. So what we do is we simply deed the property out, refinance it, and deed it back in. Now, I want to highlight one piece here is that if you're going to be using conforming loans, there's a 6-month seasoning requirement when doing the refinancing. So what we always say is, hey, let's refinance these properties, pull the cash out, and then tuck them into the infrastructure, or just be very strategic about when we're going to do refinancing. If you're a member of Royal Legal and you're a family office member, you're meeting with us every single quarter to do this type of planning, so you have a strategic plan moving forward, and then we help you navigate exactly what you need to do with that. We also make it very cost effective when doing this deeding in and out because we already will have done the bulk of the work moving the asset in the first time, so all we have to do is some quick paperwork changes and then we're able to accomplish that movement of the property in a very, very efficient, both in cost as well as time. Now, paying taxes, guys, is super easy with this. Paying taxes is so easy. You just take all of the tax that you would typically have from your passive income. All that's going to be reported typically on your personal return on your Schedule E. If you have active income from doing flipping or Airbnbs, that's going to be on your Schedule C of your personal return. If you're a married couple, you're just going to be doing that in the same in a community property state. It's the same thing as being an individual. It's still going to be one big disregarded entity for all of your tax reporting purposes. If you have unmarried partners or you're a married couple in a separate property state, it's going to be those issuing of K-1s and filing a partnership return for that LLC. So there's nothing special that happens here with the returns. It's just as if you had a single LLC that owned everything, except for the fact that you get all of the benefits of having all of this anonymity and compartmentalization, etc., that kind of runs in the background. And it just runs in the background of your life, but it doesn't cost you any more money, and it doesn't complicate anything for your taxes or any other part of your life. So this is just a diagram to show you how the flow works, is that you'd have that Series LLC, you have the child series, the trust, and the asset. The asset ends up paying rent. The rent gets paid to the Series LLC. The Series LLC then pays the owners and files that partnership return if required to do so. If you're if you're single or married, it's going to work in the exact same way. And it doesn't matter for this piece if there's a property management company that comes in the way here. It'll just flow through the property management company back to your entity here, which holds all the cash, and then it eventually distributes that to the individuals. So, and when you're using it as like a pass-through entity, or you have the partnership return, it doesn't really matter. The structure is all the same, and they're going to look at this and treat this just as if it were a single LLC, single traditional LLC that has all of these assets inside of it. Great. So a lot of people have a lot of the same questions, and this is our FAQ on that. And a lot of people think like, am I too small to need a Series LLC? And I have to tell you that it's the savvy investors that start with the end in mind. So you have to imagine, what is the next 20 years of my building of wealth going to look like? And you're going to see inside of that vision that it's going to be multiple different types of assets, and you're going to be scaling a portfolio of assets. And that's why we think it's important to start with the Series LLC, because that's going to be the entity that you're going to be growing into, right? So let's start with the end in mind, have one system that we use now for the rest of our lives. So that way we never have to get, we're not having to change course 5 years from now, because any changes later on requires expensive cleanup as well as being very cumbersome and time consuming. Now, another question we get is, will my CPA understand what to do? And as I said before, guys, this is the same as having just a single traditional LLC that owns everything. So your CPA, if they know how to handle that, they're going to know exactly what to do with the Series LLC in combination with these revocable trusts that are all treated as disregarded or pass-through entities for tax purposes. Now, other people are saying, well, I don't necessarily want to learn how to do a bunch of complicated accounting software. Do I have to do that? And the answer is no, you don't have to. A lot of our clients use QuickBooks to be able to do their accounting, but there's no legal requirement that you use software for that. You can just use an Excel spreadsheet or anything that you feel comfortable with that appropriately tracks the income and expenses for each of your individual entities or child series of your Series LLC. And lastly, people are saying, man, Scott, this sounds like the most amazing thing. Why aren't more people doing it? And the reason why I think is because there's very few people that specialize in the exact benefits and structures that really help real estate investors. And that's a Series LLC. Doesn't really help people unless they have multiple assets, unless they need that level of compartmentalization. And most people don't, but real estate investors or business owners really, really do. And so that's where we think that as the Series LLC picks up more and more steam and there's more and more states that are passing laws that allow the Series LLC, you will see that more professionals are going to start picking this up. But the reason that you haven't heard about it is because there aren't the other professionals out there that specialize in the same area that we do at Royal Legal Solutions. And we are educated and are very happy to educate other professionals on the benefits of the Series LLC. How does it work for anything that you do, like preparing and filing your taxes or anything in the gambit? Our mission is to be able to help as many real estate investors as possible and to educate other professionals about how they can help their clients even more.